This is the Middle East Report.
And so I Am Israel is really a film about God's hand on the land of Israel and the people of Israel in our time.
Each week, American Family Radio brings you truthful reporting on what's happening in Israel and the Middle East. I'm John Riley. A beautiful film has been produced called I Am Israel. This is an epic film that takes you on a soaring journey through the land of the Bible and introduces you to the Jewish men and women whose very lives are a testimony to the promises of God. I Am Israel is produced and directed by award-winning filmmaker David Kiern, who scripted the film after a trip to the Holy Land with Tommy Waller.
I Am Israel is the cinematic journey through the land of Israel that shows, in particularly shows Christians what God is doing in the land through the rebirth of the land and through the regathering of the Jewish people back to their homeland. It's got essentially prophecy all throughout. You know, Israel is going through this rebirth. Everywhere you look, we have lines in the movie about a resurrection or about things being born again or coming back to life again. The land is coming back to life. After 2,000 years of being totally dead, it's coming back to life. The vineyards, which in some ways there's nothing more messianic in terms of prophecy than the vineyards of Israel coming back to life. They're reviving, and they've essentially been born again just in the last really decade or decade and a half. It's happening in our generation. The people that through the ashes of the Holocaust have come back to Israel, and they're flourishing. Art and culture in Israel is flourishing. And so I Am Israel is really a film about God's hand on the land of Israel and the people of Israel in our time.
You're listening to the Middle East Report from American Family Radio. The idea of the film I Am Israel was to show every section of the land of Israel from the north to the south, and at the same time tell amazing stories of the Jewish people who live there.
And so what we did was we focused on 6 different characters throughout the land of Israel. They all represent a different theme in terms of the rebirth of Israel. So we start off in the Golan Heights with a cowboy, and his background, he was in the IDF. He was in the military in Israel. And we have this cattle roundup at the beginning of the movie, and we get to show what the north in Israel looks like, but we also get to go through his story of serving the nation and being a defender. In terms of the prophetic element of this, the last time that Israel had a military like this, in terms of its power and its strength and its numbers, was during the time of King David and King Solomon. Then we go a little bit further south, and we meet a mother in the mountains of Israel. She essentially represents motherhood and new life, and she's a young mother, and we go through her story. Then we go to Jerusalem and go underground, and we get to see all the new archaeology underground in Jerusalem, and we're guided through this by Daniela Avraham, who's a young tour guide there. We get to see the rebirth of the vineyards through Yaakov Berg, who's one of the pioneers in terms of bringing the vineyards back to the mountains of Judea and Samaria. And we get to see an artist, one of the greatest artists of Israel, who represents the rebirth of art and culture. But the opening of the movie, the prologue of the movie, we actually start off on what's called the mountain of Elon Moreh. Now, this is the mountain from Genesis 12, where God tells Abraham to stop and look out over the land. And there's a great-grandfather who brings his grandchildren up to the top of this mountain at sunrise. And this is the opening of the movie. And they look out all around as the sun is coming up all over the mountains of Israel. And he talks about how this mountain is important for him and his family, because this is really the beginning of the story of Israel, the story of the Jewish people in the land of Israel. I feel like the story of Israel, and especially what's unfolding right now, is really the greatest evidence of God that we have in this world. Because I feel like there's 2 big things that prove the evidence of God: creation and the story of Israel and the Jewish people. And it seems like people, when they talk about creation, it's all these debates. It's all this evolution back and forth. It's millions of years. It's we came from monkey. Like there's all these, people can't agree. There's all these debates, between Christians and the secular people. When it comes to Israel, I don't know how you can debate that, because it's just so miraculous. There were promises that God gave in the Bible when Moses and the children of Israel were in the wilderness in the desert over 3,000 years ago, that they would be scattered and then regathered back in, that the land would come back to life. We have promises of the rebirth of Israel from the times of Sinai. So many of these things are happening in our lifetime or in our grandparents' lifetime. And for Christians, as we look to Israel, I don't know if we can see any other better proof that God is here and on the move than the story of Israel.
The rebirth of Israel truly is an amazing thing to behold, and this film does an awesome job chronicling that rebirth through a beautiful presentation. If you are a pastor or church leader, the film I Am Israel can be shown absolutely free to your congregation. To find out more, visit IamIsraelFilm.com. That's IamIsraelFilm.com. That's the Middle East Reports. Each week we bring you truthful reporting on what's happening in Israel and the Middle East. Podcasts of the show are available by visiting afr.net. Thanks for listening. I'm John Riley.
It says, I will bring you in from the four corners of the earth, and people will know that you are my people and that I am your God.
Discover for yourself the miracle of the land and the courageous hearts of the people of Israel.
I am 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 Israel.
Visit IamIsraelFilm.com to begin your journey.